So we've got to learn as product owners how to say no. How do we say no? Politely. It's more important than ever before because the pressures of 2023 are seeing costs go down, costs go up through the roof, time frames being squashed because everyone wants more with less, and we have to be able to prioritize. We have to be able to prioritize effectively. So some of the tips that we want to see come into play is doing prioritization effectively. So we're into the tips now, and the first one we have is we want to prioritize the small, high value items first. That doesn't mean that we only allow the small initiatives to win. Okay. That's a little bit of a misconception. What we want to do, in fact, is learn how to slice things up into value propositions. Higher value, smaller time frame to deliver. So those larger initiatives do win. We're finding the higher value portion of it to deliver first. Second on the list, we want to deliberately decide what we're not going to invest in. And that's basically taking a look at things like, hey, business as usual activities. Is that something we want to spend money on? Is it valuable? Just because we've been doing it for many, many years, should we be doing it now? So look for opportunities to reduce what people are doing. And finally, on that front, we've got this relentless prioritization and reprioritization of the backlogs. Who's spending that time that they need to on their backlogs? Who's finding the time? Anyone? It's hard. It's really hard. Yeah, absolutely. So here's some tools that we've got for you that might help you in this space. I think, Heath, before I hear from the tools, I've got Heath, you've got a story about some relentless prioritization that's helped in the past. Is that right?
I do. I do. Actually, do you want to talk to the tools first? Because it's specific to the tools. I don't want to spoil
Okay, happy to do that.
tools.
All right, the first one's WSGIF. Anyone, thumbs up if you've heard of WSGIF. Yeah, a lot of people have. Has anyone tried applying it that's not been successful doing it? Any thumbs up there? Yeah, you got one, two, a couple of people. Yeah, fantastic. It is a tricky one. It's quite a heavyweight system that you're putting into place. So you need to be careful with that one and apply it when it's suitable. We do introduce people to this as part of our training and how to use it and when best to apply it. The second one in there is a lighter weight version. Has anyone tried Moscow before? Yep, Moscow. A few of you out there. Excellent. Who's using Moscow right now? You can put your hand up if you're using Moscow. It's a lightweight version. Excellent. Fantastic. All right, so there's two tools that you can adopt right now in a very simple, lightweight fashion. We also teach people how to apply the WSGIF in a much more complex environment as well. So we actually run through that one as part of our training. Heath,
Yes.
do you
So
want to
thank you
share
for
your
the
story?
intro. Yeah. So I've seen tools like these be so beneficial to product owners, regardless of what you use, whether it's WSGIF or a modified version or something completely different. What I've seen really work is making that transparent. So, hey, everybody, this is how we are defining value and how we can help prioritize our work. And this is always super helpful for product owners who have stakeholders who might be quite passionate and emotional, because this takes some of the emotion out of it. And what you can also do, you also have to ensure you're having the right conversations around this model. This model isn't going to necessarily do all of the work for you. Bring people around and have some collaborative conversations. So one of the great things about WSGIF and other similar models is that you're going to be discussing relative value. So if somebody says mine's super high value and somebody else is saying the same thing, you're going to be putting them next to each other and also ranking them next to other things. So it can make things a lot harder to say that is the highest value item when you're looking at other items might have also been done in the past and say, come on, is it really more high priority than this thing that gave us X amount of $1 million in return. And then you'll see some of these things start to sink down. So really helpful in some of those instances if you're struggling with multiple stakeholders who are shouting the loudest and may not necessarily have the data to back it up.
Right, thanks for that. That's a great story. Shree, you've got your hand up. Do you want to ask a question? Is that right? No, hand down very, very quickly. Thank you. Awesome. Now we'll keep moving. The next tip, oh, gone too far. Next tip is be transparent. As much as possible, we need to find ways to share information and be transparent. It's crucial, in fact, for especially larger organizations to have that transparency. The reason we need to do that is to collaborate, communicate, and allow people to make better decisions because they have the relevant information in front of them. The second thing we want to look at is relentlessly planning. So that prioritization and planning go hand in hand, and you're constantly doing that, and you're sharing your plans across your organization, not just within your team. External teams will also need to be aware of the plans. The third thing about transparency is making it visible. One of the key problems at the moment that I've noticed is that a lot of the boards are Jira boards, they're electronic. So people don't share that information as readily as they used to in the past when they used to be physical boards. So how do we make that happen? How do we get that sharing of information visible and transparent for everyone? That's one of the challenges that we need to face into. So some of the tools that you might want to choose. The first one is a user story map. Hands up if you've heard of a user story map. Great. Hands up if you're adopting a user story map today. Amazing. I don't go anywhere without a user story map. Once I was introduced to it, I found it so valuable and so important, especially for a product owner, when communicating with the parties I need to about what is next, what's next in a roadmap, what's coming up, what's the most important thing that we're going to achieve now, and also what we've completed. In fact, what we've covered off is one of the biggest challenges so that we don't redo the work, okay? And this is what transparency helps with, is preventing rework or duplication. The second thing that we wanted to talk about is the communication plan. How do we talk with people openly and transparently and ensure that we have a plan for this? Is it a regular cadence? Is it something that's built into your cycle? Or is it something that you'll have to formulate with specific stakeholders? We introduce this as part of the course. Quite often people will do it in an ad hoc fashion, but that's not sufficient usually to adequately communicate what's going on. So we like to formalize it a lot more. The third one is visual management boards. So managing the work on a board. We use it everywhere. It's helpful. In fact, I've had my own experience where I've had au pairs living in my house and we have a visual management board to help coordinate the household. That's how important I believe visual management boards are. So we cover all of these techniques off in our course and introduce you to how to use the user story maps effectively and efficiently, how to segregate some of those steps in the user story map to work out which teams are going to deliver what as well. So if you're working with multiple teams, it's a really handy way to break things up. So that's some of the tools that we've seen there. I think, Pam, did you have a story that you wanted to share about transparency?
Yes, thank you very much, Ian. So I've got an example of one of my clients, or should I say, yeah, one of the product owners who was really drowning in demands from stakeholders and just everyone just coming in with it. It was a web platform and re-releasing it, merging three organizations into one, and everybody had requirements from all different parts of the organization, and everyone wanted everything now. Squeezing every ounce of them, just like the video you saw in the beginning of the video. This podcast is really squeezing all the juice out of her. So she was just knackered. The team was knackered, and we just needed some ways to how can we really give visibility to the stakeholders on what we're doing, what's coming up, how can we satisfy them. So first, tackling it in a couple of ways. So building an empathy map to understand what are our stakeholders, what do they really, to understand them, what do they need, what are their needs, what are their pains, their gains, how can we keep them happy, what kind of ceremonies, or where do we build them into our operating rhythm, what are the things that we can invite them to that they can actually see and keep them informed. So using that stakeholder map, understanding, do they need to come to the sprint reviews? Can we just give them access to our Jira board? Can they see the progress in sort of dashboards and things like that? Do they come to our stand-up? Do I come to the planning sessions? Really involving them in operating rhythm, depending on what their need is and where they want to be. Alongside also then that as you're saying, visualizing the plan. So building that roadmap as far into the future as possible. We can also bring them along to see the value, to aid valuable discussions. So we can get them to understand where we're going to build things and get their requirements prioritized. And if not, is it a negotiation, or do we replan around where it needs to be? And actually use those prioritization methods that Heath mentioned. Really, what is the most value that we want to get out of this, so that you can actually have valuable conversations. So this is when we'll get this built, but this is what needs to come first. So really, that really helped bring everyone on the same page and a really great alignment to the stakeholders, and they know where they fit in, and it actually is they're not being ignored. It's just coming when and what the timing is. And I might just add on one thing about, you mentioned in this age of digital and post-COVID, everyone's quite remote. There's a lot of these things. Putting it on, there's a lot of tools we can leverage nowadays. We use Miro, Confluence, but also dashboards, and also like Trello. Even these things that you think might be not that easy, it's just so quick and easy to use and get their buy-in and collaboration together. So that was a quick rundown. I'll give it back to you in the studio, Ian.
Oh, great. Thank you. All right. So that's transparency, and it's crucial, absolutely crucial. And David, yes, we will bring that up at the end. I can share that with you. All right. Third one, metrics. Who's using metrics? Who's got metrics in play? Oh, not enough hands up as far as I'm concerned. These are crucial. Metrics are so important. In fact, if you've had the pressure from the top and being squeezed by by pressures from stakeholders, this is how you start to regain control. The first thing we want to look at with the metrics is ensuring that we're proactive. We're using leading indicators to make our decisions. So setting up those type of metrics is crucial. Secondly, we want to make sure that we don't dictate. We inform. We use the metrics to inform people. We're talking, we're communicating these metrics out and not telling people to do stuff. It's informing so that they come up with the solution. They come up with the decisions themselves. We're just the conduit to that information to make better informed decisions. Okay, and finally, the last one is to get rid of our ego. Use the metrics to help us make better decisions based on what's informing us rather than what our gut feel is. Everyone's got a gut feel. Hands up if you don't. No, I didn't think so. Everyone's got a gut feel, right? Everyone thinks they know better. What we actually want to do is test that out and remove those assumptions and remove our ego from the assumption. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. And to do that, we've got some tools for you. The first one is qualitative and quantitative data and combining the two to come up with appropriate information to make decisions. The second is leading indicators. Here's an example of one. You're tracking customer journeys and seeing where they drop out and which ones complete, and counting how many complete. That's a leading indicator to the success of your service that you provide. So they're the type of indicators we want to track. The third one is how we use burn-up charts So it's tracking how we're progressing with the work and using that information to inform our stakeholders about when things are likely to be completed. So we have that information readily at hand so that we can provide stakeholders with the comfort and assurance of when they're likely to receive that. The final one we've got there is actionable metrics. Rather than using vanity metrics, which is fine, like they're metrics as well. Anyone using the number of subscriptions that they have or how many people log into their website, that's a vanity metric. What we want to do is actually start to look at the actionable metrics, like how many of those people log in and then buy something. That's the important metric, okay? So it's looking at the comparison between the two. Now, that's the metrics section. The fourth tip is to reduce waste. Now, with waste, it's hard to get rid of. There's a lot of stuff that we do that we could get rid of. So we've got to do a little bit of test and learn here. The first tip to reduce waste is to kill things off and decide very deliberately to kill it off sooner rather than later. As soon as it's not proving itself, make that decision. Second, remove any assumptions with the experiment process. So, hey, we've got a number of gut feels at play. We've got a number of different experiments that we could conduct. How do we know which is going to work? Well, we actually don't until we actually put it in front of a customer and experiment with it. The third is to set clear goals and make sure they're measurable. All right, so this is how we reduce waste. If we are setting those goals, we're doing less things that are distracting us from achieving those goals because we're set and focused on delivering the outcome. The tools that we can use here, there's a number, there's three, in fact. The first one is a lean business case. Anyone using business cases still for prioritizing the initiatives and getting those through the pipeline? Yep. Anyone adopting a lean approach to a business case, a lightweight business case? Ooh, no one? Well, we've not really not covered off entirely in our product owner course, but in one of our other courses where we look at the lean portfolio management and VMO space, that's where we look at the optimization of lean business cases rather than doing a full-blown business case. The second one is the MVP, actually deliberately coming up with a proper MVP, not a pretend one, not a fake one that was just as a result of the lack of time. Okay, we need to be deliberate with our MVPs. And the final one here is experiments. Get that experimental culture embedded within your organization. Make sure you're putting forward things as a hypothesis, not a known, especially if there's uncertainty. Anyone got a crystal ball? We sell them. We, in fact, sell crystal balls over here. That is something that no one has, right? It's pretend. They're make-believe. So if you have uncertainty in your environment, you need to do these experiments and make sure that we are turning those unknowns and converting them into knowns, known quantities. That's how we learn what is important, what's valuable. And the final tip that we're going to give you today is to make better judgments with a clear mind. Free up your calendar to allow you to focus on decision making. And the final tip as part of this is to build it into your routine. Who has slack time in their routine? Anyone? Oh, awesome. There's a couple of you. Jacqueline, yeah, well done. Good. Build slack time into your routine so you can make those decisions with a clear mind. It is just so important.
Yeah, so I make time often to just do nothing on purpose, and I find that I'm more productive the next day easily.
Yeah, so true. I totally agree. So here are our tools. Here are some of the tools that we've got. The first one is that slack time. making sure that we put it into our calendar. We allocate those periods so that we can dedicate our time to thinking with a clear mind. The second one there is to look at human connection, and don't underestimate the power of this connection, that it will create the ability for you to think more clearly because you're bouncing your ideas off other individuals. Because that power of diversity, diverse thinking will enable you to come up with options that you couldn't think of by yourself. The third one is the simple breath. Who takes time to breathe and meditate? Anyone? Any meditators out there? Consciously meditating, creating that time to breathe. Some of our coaches recommend that we do it prior to each meeting, just to reset and recalibrate. Once you do that, you start to reconnect your cortex, and that enables you to make better decisions. Because if you're under constant stress and pressure, you're actually in a flight mode, and that leads to your brain disconnecting from the cortex, the logic center, the thing that makes all the good decisions. We need to get back to that, can reconnect the vagus nerve and find out a way to breathe. And the final one is a lightweight business value model. So this is a really simple tool. It's so simple, in fact, that people forget to use it. The art of simplifying your prioritization down to, hey, for my training business, I want to inform people. I want to provide people with information. That's my number one priority. My second priority is to simplify that, make it easy for people to understand. And the final one is for us to all have fun together, because through fun, we are more engaged and we learn more, in fact. So these are my priorities. Whenever I develop a course, I make it very simple and lightweight. If it doesn't meet these criteria, then I tend to leave it out and make my life easier by prioritizing what I've got. So those are the tools that we've got in play